everyone, and welcome along to our penultimate QIPCO British Champions Series preview. Only 3 more races left in the season, and one of them's a classic. Lots to get through in today's show. We'll be looking ahead to the St Leger, and it seems it's dominated by one man, Aidan O'Brien. But could William Haggis sneak it for a depleted home team? The Stayers are also in action in the Doncaster Cup, and last year it was a royal victory. And as always, we'll be joined by Chris Dixon, who's going to reflect on some of the star performers in the series this year. We've come down to the racing hub for this preview, and we're going to spend a bit of time analysing some of the star performances. And as I mentioned a few moments ago, I'm joined, as always, by Chris Dixon. Chris, great to be here, because we're going to use this machine to sort of highlight some stars of the series, and there will be horses who line up at Doncaster on Saturday that they'll be hoping that they can be stars in the St Leger as well. Yeah,
we're up to the point of the final classic of the season. As you said, a little bit later on, we're going to have a look at some of the leading contenders, those that are heading the standings in the British Champions Series at the moment. But first of all, it's time to get into the nuts and bolts of the final classic of the season.
It would seem that with the St Leger, one man holds the key, that man being the master of Ballydoyle, Aidan O'Brien. Let's start with Aura of St George. He would be the horse most prominent in the betting at this stage. Do you think the market's got it right?
I think you can kind of see why he is the one at the top of the market, because he was very impressive in a Leger trial at the Curragh last time out. He's 2 from 2 since being beaten by Bondi Beach earlier on in the season, but there was very little between the pair of them on that occasion. And on that day, Order of St George didn't have a run under his belt. He wasn't race fit, whereas his stablemate was. So it could be quite tight between the two. But the fact that he's gone on and progressed since, and he arrives on the back of 2 wins, whereas Bondi Beach was beaten last time out, is perhaps the fact that's tipping him towards the top of the market.
And let's touch on Bondi Beach now. Does his run at York suggest he's got to improve considerably to win the St Leger? Because Storm the Stars beat him at York.
He did. There wasn't a huge amount between the two, though, was there? And there was all of that interference in the latter part of the contest of the Voltigeur.
What did you make of that? Should he have kept the race, Storm the Stars?
I think the right decision was made that Storm the Stars kept the race, but I do think that on another day, Bondi Beach might well be able to beat him. And on that occasion, for all that he was hampered and the right horse probably won on the day, I just felt that he was still a little bit green, Bondi Beach. He still hasn't had loads of racing. And that greenness was just kind of made even greater by the fact that he had a horse interfering with him. Joseph O'Brien couldn't pull his stick through. It was getting so tight. He couldn't properly get stuck into Bondi Beach, really, and yet he kept on responding. Storm the Stars is a fairly battle-hardened performer. Bondi Beach has had less racing, and I think he might improve more. Both of them should improve for the longer trip.
Fields of Athenry, he did really well in the Ebor, because it's difficult for a young horse to carry that weight off that rating and perform as he did, because the race didn't go according to plan in many ways. He missed the start, he had to use up plenty of energy to get into a position. Remarkable, really, when you take it all into account, that he was able to finish as close as he was, albeit a relatively well-beaten 5th in the end.
Yeah, but I think the key point was that he was probably a little bit better than the bare result. As you said, he had a wide draw, he missed the break a little bit, but the instructions were to get him handy. He's quite an enthusiastic, free-going type. He carted his way through to a dispute of the lead, and then once they got into the straight, he kicked on. He did far too much in front for my money, and I think he was a fair bit better than the bare result. And as you point out, not too many 3-year-olds get in the Ebor anyway, but to be running in handicaps off a mark of 118 and finishing as well as he did, and probably a bit of a markup, I think that puts him down as a serious St Leger candidate.
Really interesting, actually. I spoke to Aidan O'Brien at York. He said he's never seen a horse that's able to go as quick as he does for as long as he does and sustain that gallop, and he's going to need to in the St Leger. It seems, just speaking to Chris there, that Aidan O'Brien's got the key, but one man will be hoping that he is the man with the key in his hand, and that's David Brown. And Angus McNay spoke to him in the lead-up to the St Leger.
Well, Madrano's a very interesting runner in the upcoming St Leger at Doncaster. David Brown, trainer, joins me. Peter Onslow, breeder and owner, is here as well. What a horse to be associated with.
We're very thrilled, yeah. We're absolutely thrilled. I mean, we bred the mare as well. She's bred 4 from 4 so far. So we're very pleased that this lad has sort of stepped up to the mark a bit, you know. We'd like some rain.
Yeah.
We'd love some rain next week. If we get some rain, I think I think we'd be very happy about it anyway.
David, he proved that when he's got a bit of cut in the ground, he proved in the Glasgow Stakes, didn't he, at Hamilton, that he's very useful with cut.
Yeah, oh yeah, definitely is better with some cut in the ground. Of course, a bit further as well. Well, it won't be quite as crucial, I don't think, because it's further, which will suit him better.
Yeah.
But he just got lit up and we had no chance in his last run, so, we'll try and settle him in, and he's been settled at home and we're very happy with him.
Yeah.
He's working well and, he's really stepping up. I think he'd be as well as we've had him at the moment. So.
A mile and 3/4, do you think that would suit ideally?
Yeah, well, Peter will tell you the mare used to love a 1 3/4 trick or treat. So if he settles, that's the crucial thing for him to settle, which, like he did in the Glasgow Stakes, settled in, and if you look at all his best races have been when he's settled. I mean, if you look at Goodwood, when he was the time after the Goodwood Stakes, he settled and he ran a good race there. He wasn't far behind Aiden's, and that's gone over to America and won, hasn't it? So, no, he's there with a real chance, especially if we get some dig in the ground.
Interesting thoughts there from David Brown. Chris, he's a British raider with a chance. He's had a largely consistent season. What do you make of the English Challenge on the whole?
Well, Madrano's one of the key horses within that English Challenge, but not the main contender. His standout effort came in the Glasgow Stakes up at Hamilton, a listed race, and that was on quite testing ground. And I think on the balance of his form, he is a better horse on genuinely deep ground. So he would need the heavens to open, really, and it to be pretty deep conditions at Doncaster, which looks unlikely at this stage. So for all that he's got good form along the way, he hasn't got a huge amount to find from Chester earlier on in the season with Storm the Stars. I think he's probably up against it to some degree.
Storm the Stars, the sort of leading British raider?
Very much so. He's been at all the big gigs, hasn't he? And he got that win in the bag with the Voltager last time out, but placed efforts in both the English and Irish derbies mark him down as a genuine Group 1 performer, and there could be more to come over this longer trip.
I always felt with Storm the Stars that he was due a big one, and to a point he got that at York. This will be the sort of icing on what's been a really good season for Team Haggis. But I was really pleased to see him stick his neck out in the manner he did, because I thought he deserved it on the back of some fine runs behind some really good horses.
Yeah, and he's a horse that's had quite a lot of racing, more racing than some of the O'Brien contenders, for example, but he's kept on getting better with his racing. That's something that Connections were keen to point out right at the start of the season, that he would get better as he gained more experience. He's still got that tendency to get a little bit warm and edgy before the race, but if you see that happening on Saturday, don't be too concerned. He's done it before and come home in front.
Thanks, Chris. More from Chris a little bit later on. Good luck to all of those lining up in the St Leger this Saturday. What we're going to do now is delve into the long distance category, and we are going to show you the story so far.
And they're off. Inside the final three, and a wave of three. Snow Sky on the left, coming to join Romstar. Brown Panther up between horses, and they've quickened on. Moving on towards the last quarter of a mile. Snow Sky, Moore down the centre. Buick crouching low on Romstar. Brown Panther digging into Kingscote, but it's Snow Sky who leads narrowly on down towards the last furlong. Brown Panther trying to get on terms. Romstar can't go on. Then Havana beat Brown Panther, making Snow Sky fight all the way to the line. Snow Sky the near side, Brown Panther the far side. Snow Sky inching ahead, just through strongest.
And they're off the 2015 running of the Gold Cup. As they run now towards the final 2 furlongs, it is Forever Now challenged by Forgotten Rules. On to fourth weakening, Trip to Paris improving. To the far side getting involved also, but Theron leading on Kingfisher. Simonon staying on, Mizzou down the outside. Trip to Paris on the inside, Forgotten Rules for Theron. Simonon getting involved as well. Trip to Paris gets to the lead on the run to the line from Forgotten Rules for Theron. But Simonon and the sporting nature of the Connections rewarded. Trip to Paris takes Ascot Gold from Graham Lee and Ed Dunlop.
A furlong and a half to go in the Cat at Goodwood Cup. Quest for More and Big Orange towards the inside. Palisade running on, and Trip to Paris is also coming home strongly. Quest for More edging over to the near side. Trip to Paris the far side. Big Orange sticking his big neck out is just in front, and Big Orange maybe. And they're off. Max Dynamite moves over 2 lengths clear. Mizzou still chasing. Hidden Gold back in third, then Clever Cookie and Trip to Paris at the one pace. Max Dynamite and Frankie Dettori extending the lead with every hoofbeat drawing further and further clear of Mizzou. Dettori is Dynamite and Max Dynamite wins the Lonsdale Cup.
That's a look at the long distance category so far. We're going to take this opportunity with Chris Dixon to pick out one of the highlight performances. Let's rewind the clock to Ascot, the blue ribbon event there, the Gold Cup and a win for Trip to Paris.
Yeah, you can see he's locked away on the inside at this stage. Just highlight him there. And he's going to need a clear passage through from here. So let's see how he gets it, and maybe one or two of those in behind don't manage it. But it's worth remembering that Trip to Paris had been really progressive up to this point, and he just looks for the inside run here.
Can you pause it there, Chris? I just want to highlight the difference, if we can, in the runs through. So let's get the arrow up, and you see the winner, Trip to Paris, has a clear run through here, whereas Kingfisher, this horse, he gets blocked in by the two horses on his inside.
He's the meat in the sandwich there, isn't he? You've got these two horses either side of him, that they've come together, and he was just having to wait for a gap, whereas you point out on the inside, Trip to Paris, he gets that clear passage through.
And ultimately, that can be the fine margins, the difference between winning and losing.
It can. You can see all the way he's got that troubled passage. Ryan Moore's looking to go one way and another, and he just couldn't get out, and Trip to Paris got that run up the inside. But for all that he might well have been a somewhat fortunate winner on this day, as I say, it's worth remembering that he'd gained 3 handicap wins prior to this point. He'd been supplemented for this race. It was a big run from him on the day, and he's since gone on and been beaten, but finished third in the Goodwood Cup, and emerging at the best horse in the weights, carrying a penalty for that win.
Excellent stuff. Well, he's been a real star this season. Palisade has been a mainstay throughout his career for his connections. And the next race we're going to look at is the Doncaster Cup, and Palisade is one of the horses that has a chance in that race.
Yeah, he's a little bit in and out, Palisader, isn't he? It's fair to say that he has his good days and his bad days, but when he's on one of those good going days, he's definitely a horse who's capable of winning a race like the Doncaster Cup.
Other horses to mention in the Doncaster Cup? Callan, who finished third in it last year behind Estimate.
Yeah, Callan came into this race, I think, with an official rating of about 80 last year. Comes into it a horse with a much more obvious chance this time around, partly courtesy of that third place finish 12 months ago. So that's definitely one of the key contenders in the field. I think you can wind the clock back to Royal Ascot for another two of the key contenders that may or may not turn up, in Condor Warrior, who won the Ascot Stakes, and the horse who was second to him, Fun Mac. Fun Mac has been beaten since, but ran very well at Goodwood. That was his first start since Royal Ascot, and the return to a longer trip should help him, and it's worth remembering that should he reoppose with Condor Warrior, he'd be £7 better off for not that far a defeat on that occasion, so he might be a major contender for the Hugh Morrison team.
Thanks, Chris. More from Chris a little bit later on. Whichever jockey wins the Doncaster Cup, they'll add some British Champions Series points to the jockey's tally. George Baker got his first points of the series on Quest for More at Goodwood, and he'll be hoping for more of the same at Doncaster. Let's hear from George now.
I suppose when I won on seal of approval at Ascot, it's a first Group 1 winner for me, and I'll always remember it was a great day. I like traditional roast dinner, be my favourite. I like a nice cold beer. Probably Harry Bentley, very, very smart. Always looks very respectable and well turned out. I'd have to say Martin Dwyer, probably. He's the biggest joker and definitely the biggest moaner. I grew up, when I was growing up and sort of started off racing, Ray Cochran, I sort of always admired him, and he was someone that I looked up a lot to, and he was very dedicated. I enjoyed watching him run. There's so many. I mean, I suppose the ultimate athlete for me is Usain Bolt, really. 100% would be a professional golfer. I'd love to do that. haven't got any. If I could pick any horse to ride that's ever run, probably Frankel. He's, ultimate racehorse, and unbeaten. He was just, spectacular. Just to keep doing what I'm doing, riding plenty of winners, hopefully, and onwards and upwards.
So as we look at the jockey standings, we'll see three very familiar names at the top of the leaderboard. Ryan Moore, who has recently been sidelined with injury. Frankie Dettori, who's had a fantastic season with the likes of Golden Horn et al. And James Doyle, whose partnership with Godolphin is a fruitful one in 2015. He's had a fantastic season. Other big names, Chris, that aren't on the list, the likes of Sylvester de Souza leading the way in the Jockeys Championship. William Buick's had a very good season. He's one of Godolphin's jockeys along with James Doyle. We've got a good crop of jockeys at the moment.
Yeah, there are. And Sylvester de Souza, of course, an excellent ride in the Juddmonte International to cause a little bit of an upset in getting the better of Golden Horn. I think race tactics had a huge part to play in that win on Arabian Queen. Ryan Moore still at the top of the list, but of course he's still out injured, and it looks as though the overall title in terms of British Champions Series leading rider will probably go to Frankie Dettori, who's still got some big rides to come.
And it would be the culmination, if he is indeed to win, which I have to say, it looks likely at this stage, doesn't it? It would be the culmination of what's been an excellent season for Frankie. He's had his ups and downs, but he's very much on and up at the moment.
Yeah, he's been resurgent, hasn't he, this season, and it's been brilliant to see.
That's a look at the jockeys. We're going to focus our attentions now on the speedsters. So let's have a look at the sprint standings, and Muhara is a horse who's right up there, Chris, along with the likes of Mecca's Angel and Undrafted. Muhara was a winner of the inaugural Commonwealth Cup and then followed that up in the July Cup. And it's not easy for three-year-olds, as I highlight Muhara there in the Hampden Almet Tombsilk. It's not easy for three-year-olds to beat elder horses in the style he has done this season. Here's the winner. I want to highlight this, the second Tropics, the third Eastern Impact, and then the fourth Soul Power. What does this mean? Because when you look at it, the winner comes from the left, the placed horses come from the right. Do we upgrade Muhara's performance?
I think you do to a large degree. It's not just track position, as you can see, rightly point out that those horses are more towards the centre of the track. The sectional showed that they didn't go that hard in the early part of the contest, and I think that was obvious to anyone watching on the day as well, without those sectionals to see. And Muhara is the horse who makes ground from the back of the field, along with the fifth horse who's just back in there, Danzino. Now, he's been beaten in the Sprint Cup since, but certainly not disgraced. But the key point really is that these horses, including Tropics, who'd been second in this race the previous year as well, and he's a really good horse, did just kind of have a bit of a tactical advantage, I think, on Muhara. And as you can see, as we roll it on, it's a little while before he picks them up. Still, we're at the 4 furlong point, so that's 2 furlongs gone, and these horses have got a bit of a break on him, and they haven't really had to work that hard to get that kind of advantage from Muhara.
How impressive I mean, it goes without saying, given what he's done this season, but in terms of sprinters in recent years, how highly do you rate this horse?
I think he's as good as we've had trained in Britain. I think he's a really, really exciting prospect. I think one of the highlights of the season was his win in the Commonwealth Cup, and then proving it here against the older horses. He got a little bit unbalanced there in the dip as well, and he picks them off late on.
If we could just stop it here, you'll see now, as we highlight, Tropics, the second makes his run here, Eastern Impact there, Soul Power there, Danzino here. They're all in contention. But the winner is Muhara, and he's still a fair way away from his rivals. He's still got a lot to do to win the race.
Yeah, he's still got a fair bit of ground to make up, but the impressive thing is, once he really gets stuck into him, he starts picking them up, and he just gets there on the line to pick up those horses, as I say, that had kind of got first run him. Since this, he's gone on and won another Group 1 in France, so 3 times a Group 1 winner this year. There's no doubt that he has been the star of the sprint division.
For a long time, it looked like he wasn't going to get there. He would have been an unlucky second in many ways, or a close second, running a gallant race in defeat. But he gets there right on the line. He's a class horse. He really is. So that is a look at the speedsters. Now we're going to turn our attentions to the milers. So 3 big names, the top of the tree. Solo, Glen Eagles, Night of Thunder. One trained in France, Chris, one trained in Ireland, one trained in England. Let's have a look, if we can, at Solo, the French grey in action. We'll highlight Solo here in shot. He goes on to win the Sussex Stakes this day and wins it pretty stylishly in the end. All in saying that, it was a bit disappointing that we didn't get another duel on the Downs.
Yeah, I suppose the two key horses going into the race came to the fore in many ways. They dominated the race from start to finish, or you can see here that A-Rod, the second horse, is out in front in the Qatar Racing colours, and Solo, another Group 1 victory for him. We'll pause it in a second, because I think there is a point, isn't there, where he looks a little bit vulnerable. I think that maybe his rider goes a little bit sooner, and Andrea Atzeni and A-Rod are just on the bridle that little bit longer. You can see here, it is just that little bit more serious leading up to that point for Solo than it was for A-Rod on the far side.
If I can just step in here, Chris, I just want to highlight the winner Solo. There he is. There's the second A-Rod. Night of Thunder, a talented horse who's had a good season, won at the start of the year. They are three very talented horses. Ultimately, Solo pulls clear of them and wins a shade cosily. But people will look at this moment, connections of horses in this category will look at this specific moment of the race and think, he is beatable, Solo. There's elements of his performance that we'd want to have a go at.
Yeah, I think that's probably fair enough, but this Goodwood mile is probably not as stiff a mile as, say, Ascot, where he'll line up in the final round of the series, hopefully. And I think Ascot probably suits him better. This is a horse who gets 10 furlongs already, and he sees his race out really powerfully. And as you say, by the time he gets to the line, he's relatively comfortable in doing it.
Let's just pause it when he crosses the line. He's won by, what, about half a length in the end? He's gone a little bit past us there, but it was about half a length. Then we've got the likes of Night of Thunder, who was ultimately well beaten.
The interesting thing to point out, Ol, is that those horses that he highlighted, the likes of Night of Thunder that were there, that tried to press on with the two that came to the fore, they've dropped away. Gabriel, he was out the back of the screen. He eventually finishes in third spot.
You can actually see the distance that the first two have put between their rivals. They're talented horses. They're probably, certainly on this day, they're a little bit above their rivals. Interesting race that, and it went the way of Solo, who'll be hoping that he can round off his season with another win when we see him next time out. So there's a look at the milers, and now we're going to turn our attentions to the middle distance category. So in the middle distance category, you'll see that the Derby winner, Golden Horn, is up top, and quite clearly at the top as well. From Free Eagle, from the Grey Gatsby, and Chris, we're going to have a look at arguably our biggest race of the year, the Derby, at Epsom. Took place first weekend in June, and if we didn't know it already, this was the making of a champion. Yeah, we'll highlight the winner here, shall we all? He's just there. Is Golden Horn, and you'll see that the question mark coming into this was, would he stay? But as we roll it on, it's quite clear that he really does stay the mile and a half, and he's shown his versatility by dropping back in trip and winning an Eclipse over 10 furlongs as well. If you could just pause it, Chris, what impressed me, you'll see as I highlight the winner, Golden Horn, the second, Jack Hobbs, and the third, Storm the Stars. What impressed me, when I remember watching it live actually at the races, and I looked at it and I thought, Golden Horn's in a bit of trouble here. Storm the Stars is gutsy and will stay. We didn't 100% know that he was going to be a ledger horse at this stage, but we knew he'd got stamina in his pedigree, etc. Jack Hobbs was arguably travelling better. However, when we play it on, you'll see a brilliant turn of foot from Golden Horn to quite emphatically go past his stable companion Jack Hobbs, who is wandering around a bit due to inexperience. But so is Golden Horn, isn't he? He was down the Canberra depths, and that's quite common. It's the way he just quickens up from here. It is. This is the really impressive bit. Yeah, he puts a lot of distance between himself and the other horses at the line. We'll stop it if we can, or when we get pretty much to the line as well. He's powering away here under Franco Dettori. But look at that margin once we get to the winning line in the Derby, and there he is. He's just passed the line there, but that's a future Irish Derby winner by a wide margin, and that is a leading St Ledger candidate and great voltage winner who has been brushed aside. It was one of those Derby wins when you're there, when you watch it on the telly, where you go, wow, we've seen something special. He backed it up in the Coral Eclipse. The ground maybe went against him at York, but on the whole, connections, Anthony Oppenheimer, his breeder, will be delighted with the season that he has had, as will all of the connections of horses we've just been through over the last 10 minutes or so. I hope you enjoyed that. There are some of the star performers from the QIPCO British Champions Series in 2015. Sadly, that's all we've got time for in this QIPCO British Champions Series preview. And Chris, we say this pretty much every time we do one of these things, but it's true. The racing we've got coming up really, really gets you excited. The St Ledger, the final classic of the season, what a race it's going to be.
Yeah, it'll be a brilliant race, and as we touched on right at the start of the programme, Aidan O'Brien is the man with the key to the ledger, and he's had a great record in recent years, but it's not just his there for the taking, I don't think. There are some solid enough home challengers to make sure that he's going to have to work for another ledger win.
Now, you at home might be watching going, where was Dixon versus Bell this time around? Well, because it's 2-2, what we're going to do is save the decider until Champions Day, and that's when we will be back as we preview QIPCO British Champions Day, the season finale. So we will lock horns in the run-up to that, and I cannot wait. Hopefully it will be Bell 3, Dixon 2. Chris, thanks for your work as always. Good to see you. We'll see you next time as we look ahead soon to QIPCO British Champions Day. But for now, we're going to all go home and get very excited about the final classic of the season, which is coming up from Doncaster. For now, we'll say goodbye, and I hope you enjoy the racing this weekend.